What problems are you dealing with in your life right now?
Do you feel like giving up? Times are hard and you're not strong. Well, I know the answer for you, and it will lead to real truth. Don't look back to yesterday.
Now there are answers.
Tomorrow's on the
Welcome to
way.
Live Prayer.
It's waiting there for you.
Here's your host, Bill Keller.
And welcome to Live Prayer. I am Bill Keller. Good to be with you on this Wednesday evening. Pray you had a good Wednesday. It's good to be back together once again. If you're new to the program, you are watching Live Prayer. We come to you live in living color every Monday through Friday. That's 11 to midnight Eastern Standard Time, and wherever you may be watching me right now, all throughout this great, big, beautiful land of ours, from sea to shining sea, and from border to border. Thank you for tuning in. Our friends in other far-off great lands, I want to welcome you as well. Once again, I am Bill Keller, founder of Liveprayer.com, world's largest interactive Christian website. Reach a little over 2.5 million folks each and every day via the internet. Please check us out online, web address coming up on your screen, Liveprayer.com, Liveprayer.com. So pray you had a good Wednesday as we're working our way through another week of programming. Got some very interesting things to talk to you about tonight. Of course, we're going to have to get everybody up to speed on the latest on Epstein. I've surrendered now, folks. Okay, I quit arguing with God. You know, I mean, obviously, this is sadly. And this is what's frustrated Trump. This is sadly still a top issue out there. And but the good thing is, if you're watching this program each night, you are not only understanding this issue, but you're also understanding how it is being weaponized. Okay, and that's what you get on this program. You don't get a lot of places. You know, you can turn on anybody and hear an opinion or get a recitation of what's going on, but the insight into why it's going on, that's what you get here. You don't get most places. Whatever spiritual implications there are for our faith is something also we cover here that you don't get anywhere else. So we got a lot to go over. Got a lot of Ukraine stuff for you tonight. Keep praying, folks. I think we're getting closer. I really do. And when I say closer, I mean closer to this insane war being over. So got a lot of new stuff for you on that tonight as well. So got a lot of good stuff. Before we do anything, 4 things I ask you to do for me each night on this program. Number 1, pray for me and the program. I thank you so much for doing that because, again, it's not, you don't pray by osmosis. You pray by focusing on an actual person or event or situation that you want to pray about. I mean, that's prayer. So for those of you who call my name before the throne room of God and lift up this ministry, thank you more than you'll ever know. I appreciate it. Number 2, of course, is the daily devotional. If you don't get it, why not? Sign up. It's free like everything at Live Prayer. Go to my homepage, upper right-hand corner. You will see a sign-up link. Click on it. It's going to ask you for a couple pieces of basic information. You'll be good to go. It'll start showing up in your email every morning. Written it every morning since we began Live Prayer over 26 years ago. And if you do get the devotional, encourage people you know to sign up. Again, it's free. It's a great way to start the day with a little encouragement, hopefully a little inspiration. And like I always say, if nothing else, when you go to your email first in the morning, you see that Live Prayer Daily Devotional, the very first thing you think about is staying connected with the Lord, that this is not a relationship for an hour on Sunday morning or maybe an extra hour of Bible study during the week, but it's literally 24/7. Third, of course, is this TV program. I got to tell you, as far as what we do here, and been doing it for 23 years coming this March, bringing real insight into the issues. Monday's program, Tuesday's program were incredible. Tonight is going to be another good one. So do me a favor. I wish I had $100,000 a month to spend on advertising the program all over the place, but we don't. But I've got the best advertising budget there is, you. So please tell your people you know, your family, your friends, people at church about the program, and encourage them to give it a try for a couple nights. Okay? I understand it's way too much truth. It's way too hardcore for some people. I get it. Okay? I do. I understand. But for people who really want to be in the know, this is a very unique place to come and achieve that. Last of all, of course, this is a faith ministry. No advertisers, no sponsors. Don't sell anything. When I say anything, I mean anything. I've always believed that for every second I was trying to sell you something, I could be using that time to bring truth into the marketplace outside the four walls of the church. For every minute I spent trying to sell you something, I would much rather use that time trying to encourage you to come to know Jesus by faith. But been doing this now for a third of a century, or a little over a quarter of a century online. Like I said, next March it'll be 23 years on TV. All that has been possible because of the faithful prayers and those people who have caught the vision of what we do here and have sacrificed to keep this ministry going. If you want to help me with a gift, go to my homepage. Upper right-hand corner is a donation link. It gives you our address in St. Petersburg, Florida, if you want to drop something in the mail. Also, it gives you a link to our secure credit card portal, if that's more convenient. And again, as we're heading into the last 40-some days of the year, please take a moment tonight and just pray about what God may have you do about a special year-end gift to Live Prayer. For some of you, it will make a lot of sense fiscally in the sense that you're either going to give money to Uncle Sam or give it to Live Prayer, because obviously everything you give to this ministry is 100% tax deductible. And I don't know why you would rather give money to the government than to a work of God like Live Prayer. I'm just saying. At least you know we're not buying, $30 screwdrivers and $400, whatever they buy for $400. The way they go through money is it's disgusting. But anyway, pray about supporting me. Go to my homepage again, upper right-hand corner, click on the donation link. All right, let's pray. Father, we are grateful for this Wednesday night to gather together in your name. Thanking you tonight, Lord, for my dear friends who have joined me. I lift them up, their families. I pray, God, your richest blessings upon them and their house tonight. Thank you for this day we've enjoyed, a day that wasn't promised to us, a gift from you, the blessings we've known throughout the day. And now, Lord, we commit this time to you tonight. Open our hearts, our minds. Help us to hear clearly from you tonight. Understand clearly the things we need to know. We praise you for it and thank you for it. In Jesus' name, amen and amen. All right, let's do Epstein and get him out of the way. Unbelievable. I'm gonna quit. I'm gonna quit whining. I told God, okay, I'm done whining. I remember 17 years ago when the whole Epstein saga began, or at least it was exposed to the world in 2008. I used the opportunity not only to obviously bring people up to speed on what was going on, but again, the unique situation at that time was not just the trafficking of underage girls and whatever proclivities he had in that area, but of course, clear connections to U.S. and international intelligence organizations. Obviously used the Epstein saga 17 years ago to once again highlight the just the ongoing epidemic of children who are sexually assaulted in this country, not by a monster named Epstein, but usually by family members or people close to family. It is a much more prevalent issue than most people would ever understand. And of course, through the years, since Epstein surfaced, I've used that as a backdrop to focus on the child abuse that goes on in this country. Trump signed the bill tonight to release the Epstein files. That will now basically, within, I guess, 30 days, Pam Bondi will go through, release whatever they have, redact, obviously, things that deal with national intelligence. And I'm going to get to that in just a second. But at the end of the day, we'll see. Again, so much of this stuff, when they've already released like 20 or 30,000 documents just in the first months of the, and of course, like I told you last night, and I'm gonna close the whole Epstein thing with this truth that you need to understand. It's never going to be enough. It's never going to be enough. Just like Russia. There's always another secret lurking around the corner. When it was a hoax the whole time. But anyway, all right, so Trump has signed the bill, and this will start the clock running on getting these quote-unquote documents. Now, anybody, let me just say this in front, anybody thinks that in those documents is going to be a list, Epstein's pedophiles. If anybody thinks there's a black book, again, there's no such thing. And I'm only telling you that because Epstein's lawyers have claimed that for years and years. There's no Epstein list. There's no black book. We do have his personal phone book, and we've had that for 10, 14 years, something around that area. His daytimer, his daily schedules. That's how we know a lot of the names who were involved, like Bill Gates, Larry Summers. Oh, you talk about a pathetic human being, man. Bill Richardson is, of course, deceased. But, and again, we'll get into this in a minute, but so much of this was Democrats. Now, listen to this one. Jazzy Crockett, the prep school, very well raised young lady from St. Louis who's now playing the role of a hood rat from Texas, where she's a congresswoman. She got on the floor today and she wanted to show the world how smart she was. And as she was on the floor, she said, you know what I found? Because again, there have been clear examples. In 2013, Dollar Store Obama, Hakeem Jeffries, met with Epstein looking for money. 5 years after we knew who Epstein was. Don't forget, 2008 is an important year. That's when the world knew who Epstein was. Anybody who was dealing with Epstein after 2008 knew who they were dealing with. And for the record, you have zero connections between Trump and Epstein after 2006, when he booted him out of the Mar-a-Lago Club. 2 years before the world, Trump or anybody, knew the dark world of Jeffrey Epstein. But that world was exposed in 2008. Again, very important year, because anybody who had anything to do with Epstein after 2008 clearly knew who they were dealing with, and most of them didn't care because they were looking for money. More than young girls, they were looking for money, okay, because Epstein rolled in those circles. So, let me tell you about Jazzy today. Jazzy Crockett, gets on TV and is foul-mouthed and nasty. And she was so proud of herself today because she went to the federal records of who gives to campaigns, right? And she found out that Jeffrey Epstein gave money to Mitt Romney, the National Republican Committee, the McCain-Palin presidential team, WinRed, which is a portal to give to Republicans, Rick Lazio, if you remember him from back in the day, Lee Zeldin, who was a congressman who's now the head of the EPA, found out he got money from Jeffrey Epstein. George W. Bush got money from Jeffrey Epstein. as did the McCain-Palin campaign. Okay? So she was quite proud of herself. And she was taunting the Republicans. All you have to do is go to the Federal Election Commission records and you can do this too. Not 30 minutes went by until her beautiful, beautiful big bubble burst right in her face. And it started with Lee Zeldin. Again, was a congressman. He's now the current head of the EPA, doing a great job, by the way, getting those regulations cut and everything, doing a great job. It started with Lee Zeldin. And Lee Zeldin said, "You got me, Jazzy, you got me. Yep, I took a donation from Jeffrey Epstein." And there was a pause in his writing. And then we picked up. The problem is, though, it was Dr. Jeffrey Epstein, not the Jeffrey Epstein you're thinking about. And as it turns out, it was a Dr. Jeffrey Epstein who apparently was a donor to Republicans over the years. And all of these Jeffrey Epstein donations that Jazzy was throwing in the face of the Republicans, they weren't from the sick pedophile Jeffrey Epstein. They were from Dr. Jeffrey Epstein. What a clown. These people, this is what I tell you. How many nights have I sat here and told you how sloppy these Democrats are? They think they're so clever and so smart. Anybody with half a brain would have just double. I do not know the numeric statistics of how common a name Jeffrey Epstein is, okay? But Jeffrey is a very common name. Epstein is a very common name. So without even doing any research, I can just assume, and I don't think incorrectly assume, that there's probably quite a few Jeffrey Epsteins out there. Anyway, again, let me remind you, it wasn't until his first conviction in 2008, okay, that the world got their first look at the dark world of Jeffrey Epstein. And again, this is important because anybody who dealt with Epstein after 2008 knew who he was, okay? And again, Trump's last dealing with Epstein was in 2006 when he booted him from the Mar-a-Lago Club because he had heard rumors he was, just being, nasty with younger girls, didn't want any of that stuff around, and booted him. And never had any communication, interaction with Jeffrey Epstein since that time in 2006. 2 years before the world knew, okay? That is critical. And by the way, just for the record, and this is why you never heard Democrats yelling for Epstein files during the 4 years of the Biden administration, where they controlled the FBI, the CIA, the DOJ. They controlled all the departments of the government. And yet, in 4 years, they didn't mention the name Epstein once. Why? Well, it's clear. We're clearly finding out why now. Because all of Epstein's associates and connections, especially after 2008, when he was known to be what he was, well, all with Democrats. Okay? All Democrats. And don't forget that 2008 plea deal, U.S. Attorney Acosta, who was the U.S. Attorney in Miami, was prosecuting the case. He had an indictment prepared that was going to basically put Epstein in prison for 500 years. Okay? He was never getting out. Even back then, they had enough credible, indictable offenses to put him in prison for the rest of his life. And then one day, before the indictments came down, he got a phone call from Maine Justice. Now, Acosta was the head U.S. attorney in the Southern District of Florida, which is in Miami. Okay, his boss would be probably the assistant attorney general in Washington. Okay, Main Justice. And Acosta got a call from his boss at Main Justice and said, "Back off. Epstein belongs to Langley." And again, this audience is well educated now that they basically were saying that Epstein belongs to the CIA, probably as some sort of an asset, whatever. But the CIA was now involved in this. And that's how he got the sweetheart plea deal he did, because obviously the CIA greased the wheels for that to happen because they were still in some form or fashion still using him for whatever he used him. We're going to get into that in a second too, okay? So, and again, so we've known since 2008 when this whole sweetheart plea deal was unveiled that Epstein was some kind of an asset of our CIA. And don't forget, Ghislaine Maxwell, her father, he was connected, totally connected, it's not even disputed, with Mossad, which is Israel's intelligence agency. And because he was English, it would only make sense that he had some connections to MI6, which again is the British intelligence agency. Okay? So this is very important because listen to me. In all of the clamor for Epstein files that I've heard from the Democrats and from the clowns in the Republican Party like MTG, okay? Sorry, we talked about last night. If you missed last night, you need to go listen to it because I exposed you exactly why MTG is like dropped off the deep end, okay? But if these people were really serious about getting to the bottom of Epstein and not just using it as a weapon to go after Trump, okay? Just like they used Russia as a weapon to go after Trump, even though they knew day one that it was a hoax created by the Hillary Clinton campaign, and they know now that there's nothing tying Trump to Epstein. But if they were really interested, they would be on CIA Director John Ratcliffe, Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard, and they would be looking for documents from the CIA, Marco Rubio, State Department, because of course Epstein was had a global presence. That means the State Department would have been very involved in what he was up to. But they never go after the CIA or the State Department. Never ask. That if you really want to know, and listen, I said back in 2017 when we found out he belonged to Langley, I said, well, that's where you're going to find, the real story of Epstein in the CIA, at the CIA. But one thing I pray I've helped you understand and learn, our government, going way back, has never had any problem with destroying documents. Okay, I mean, we've just had too many examples of the government destroying documents. Even give them the benefit of the doubt that if something, nasty was on paper, it most likely was destroyed. Now, in the event that there are Epstein-related documents at the CIA, at the State Department, I mean, now those would be the documents that you would want to see. And I said this 17 years ago and reiterated over and over when they got him in 2019. And they were apparently through with him because they threw him in jail. And, they were going after him this time. I reiterated the plea then that if you really want to know about Epstein, CIA. And if you remember, when he was arrested at Teterboro Airport, the private airport in New Jersey, they're right outside of New York, right after that, I assume the FBI, might have been the CIA, I don't know, raided his New York townhome. And they found a safe full of diamonds, dozens of passports, dozens of thumb drives with either videos or pictures on them. All kinds of, Where'd all that go? Where's that? Okay. Any real information that would shed any light on the full scope of Jeffrey Epstein, that's where you would find all of that stuff. CIA. But it's funny, they never talk about it. Never talk about it, don't care, don't want to know anything. They just want to use it as a weapon. Okay, they want to use it as a weapon. All right, so let me end Epstein tonight. I'm just looking through one more page here. Let me end Epstein tonight with this, because I want to give you the track to watch in the coming weeks and months, okay? And I just want to tell you, I'm going to tell you now what's going to happen with the Epstein situation in the coming weeks and months, okay? You ready? And when you see it happen, yeah, Brother Bill said that. Don't forget, they've already released 30-some thousand Epstein documents since Trump's been in office. But here's the point. It's never going to be enough. That's how they kept the Russia scam going for 2.5 years. It was never enough. They always came up every night with a bombshell. Oh, if I had a dime for every time I heard the word bombshell from MSNBC and CNN, I'd be talking to you right now from the Liveprayer Island in the middle of the Pacific, okay? It's going to be just like that. Whatever documents they release, never going to be enough. Some of those documents are going to be redacted for privacy, for national security reasons. What's in those redactions? Okay, this is what you're going to be hearing. This is the drumbeat you're going to hear from the Democrats and the garbage media from now, definitely through the midterms, maybe even to the end of Trump's term now. Okay, it's never going to be enough. Period. Okay. And of course, the Democrats are going to claim, well, because Trump controls Pam Bondi and the CIA, he's hiding those critical documents that we want to see. Okay, this is the kind of garbage you're going to be hearing over the next weeks and months. Okay, and again, like I told you, like Russia, they can keep this going for a long time, even though everybody knows. Listen, if a lowly internet evangelist who's not an investigative reporter, don't even try to play one on TV, knows that Trump has been cleared every way possible. Epstein's attorneys, Epstein himself, when he was offered a plea deal by Comey's daughter Maureen, who was prosecuting him, give us dirt on Trump and we'll let you go. Okay? By Virginia Guthrie, the most visible Epstein victim. Sadly took her life in Australia earlier this year, but wrote books, had many interviews. Every time asked about Trump, nope, nothing with Trump. Any other victims that actually took questions when asked about Trump, no, never said. So he's been cleared it won't matter. Will not matter. Because the Democrats are going to try to make you believe, oh, there's a document, they're hiding it. That's the document we want, which of course doesn't exist. All right, interesting. You would think of Charlotte, North Carolina as just a nice little, city, the biggest city in North Carolina. Okay, but and again, like all these big cities, no matter if the state itself is Republican or Democrat, these big cities are all run by Democrat mayors and Democrat administrations. So is Charlotte and Mecklenburg County, okay? And the day after ICE showed up at Charlotte, and man, have they been arrested illegals in Charlotte. Whoa, boy, the Catholic Charities and all these immigration NGOs, man, they stash these people everywhere, even in nice little places like Charlotte, North Carolina, because ICE has been I think they've arrested 400 illegals just in the first few days. But what I want to talk to you tonight about was the day after I showed up, 30,000 students in the greater Charlotte school districts were absent. It was like 20% of the students didn't come to school that day. And of course, the natural thought process is, these must be illegal kids. And listen, one of the great burden, again, Biden and New Yorkers are such human scum. I mean, they really are. The whole invasion of our country that never should have happened. It's just one of the most disgusting chapters in U.S. history. It really is. And people like Lincoln Riley and all the names that we have come to know too well would be alive if it wasn't for these evil people and this evil scheme that was designed for one thing: reshape the demographics of states, add more Democratic seats to the House, and couple million, 3 million, I don't know, 4 million more Democratic voters. I mean, their goal was clear. And anybody that got in the way and was killed or had their life destroyed, oh, well, just, too bad. That's why they're so disgusting. But think about this, 20% of the Charlotte school system, the kids in the school, didn't show up to work or to school the day after I showed up. And it's a logical assumption. These are kids of illegals. And based on the people around and up around Charlotte, it's probably true. But what I was a point I was getting ready to make was that you get school systems all over the country, and they're always broke. They always need money, yet they're being taxed excessively by all these illegals. Most of them don't speak English. They got to bring in translators. The education most of these American kids are getting are pretty pathetic to begin with, as we know. And then you add all these illegals, and it just even makes that education experience even worse. But this is and Charlotte, again, is not a town you would expect all this, but it's just an example. This is happening all over the country, folks. Not just in Charlotte, all over the country. And it's not just the big cities like New York and Chicago and LA. I mean, Columbus, Ohio, my hometown, I know for a fact, a lot of illegals in Columbus and in the schools. Indianapolis, I mean, name a town. They're pretty much everywhere. Nobody's escaped this. And that was the sick plans of these NGOs, these immigration NGOs who were making billions, like Catholic Charities, Lutheran Services, many of the Jewish organizations that were in that world. I mean, these were the people that got these illegals into the country, flew them all over the country, so they didn't stand out so much. Placed them in towns like Charlotte, got them a place to live, got them food stamps so they could eat, got them clothes, got their kids in school, got them medical attention, even got illegals jobs that they were illegal to have. And again, one of the first things the Trump administration did, and I was screaming about for 4 years, they have to shut down these NGOs. And they have they have. NGOs are out of business. Much to the chagrin of people like Pope Leo. So you've got that going on. Now, in addition to that, you have this insane judge, Jeb Boasberg, who's the chief judge of the D.C. Circuit, which every one of those judges, Tanya Chutkan, just Beryl, they are just some of the most disgusting human beings, totally partisan. What they did as judges to these January 6th people is the kind of stuff that you would see in Russia, in North Korea, in China, okay, in places like that, all right? If you remember back in March when Trump was just in and they were starting their first wave of deportations, on a weekend, they had flown, I don't know, several hundred out of the country, and Boasberg had an emergency hearing and demanded that those planes be turned back. Remember that? And we also know Boasberg was the guy who rubber stamped all of Jack Smith's wire requests to get the phones from senators and House members and all. That was Boasberg. Oh, he is a Trump. By the way, one of his best friends in the judiciary is Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts. Just saying. He is a horrible. Now, the House has already filed impeachment articles against Boasberg. The Senate was kind of quiet until they found out their phone records have been taken without their knowledge. So now they're on board. I believe that these impeachment proceedings are going to happen pretty quickly. Anyway, go back to March. So during that whole March time, he kept basically wanting to hold the government, the U.S. attorneys, in contempt of his courtroom for not obeying his orders. The DOJ appealed to the appellate division, and the appellate division basically told Boasberg, "Stand down. You're not gonna, hold anybody in contempt over this goofy order on a Saturday evening," which was just a total setup. But now, that same appellate division said, "Listen, if you want to go after these people for contempt, you got to start the whole process all over again, because the original contempt process was tainted," right? So today, Boasberg held a hearing, and he is bound and determined to hold the government in contempt for his insane order on March 15th. Now, I know Republicans in the Senate and House have sent a letter to who would be his superior in the appellate division, basically letting them know that he is like out of control, and there are going to be impeachment proceedings started very quickly. They need to go to the floor tomorrow, put the impeachment documents on the table. God help any Republican that opposes this, because every Democrat will, but that's fine. We don't need them. We've got enough Republicans if they just stick together and at least start the impeachment process, because this shuts down Boasberg, because during that time, he's not going to be able to hold any, his job as a judge is basically on hold through these proceedings. So we've got that going on. Unbelievable, right? Elon, I told you he and Trump would hug it out and make up. They had a big dinner last night, a special state dinner for the head of Saudi Arabia, MBS. And Elon was there front and center, and he and Trump are boys again, so that's good to see. By the way, I saw some video and some stills of the state dinner last night. It was in the East Room. Holds about 110 people, and that's cramming them in. And then I was thinking about the beautiful new ballroom that Trump is having built. What a difference it's going to make. And listen, I am in no way trying to shame or degrade any churches. But when I looked at that last night, it was like looking at, a local church's potluck supper on a Sunday night, with everybody wearing the most fancy clothes they've got. I'm serious. That's exactly what I thought. That's what it looked like. You had the two tables in there, and everybody's crammed in like sardines. I mean, it was pathetic. It really was. And of course, as you know, when they wanted to go all out, they would bring in tents and everything, and women in their, multi-$1,000 gowns and shoes could then walk in the grass, and God help you if it rained that night or they'd watered the lawn because their heels would sink in it. It's like a third world country. We're the United States of America. And whatever you say about Trump, I mean, at least he wants this country to look like the most successful country in the world, okay? Because we are. And we should look like it. Todd Blanche, who's the number 2 at the DOJ, right behind Pam Bondi, he has gone on the record about these Democrats from the House and Senate that I shared with you last night that put out this video basically telling people in the armed forces and intelligence community that you do not have to listen to Donald Trump's orders. If it's not a legal order, you can refuse to obey that order. No, it's basically telling them to be insubordinate. And some of these people in that video have been on TV, and I got to give them credit. Even CNN said, well, what exactly order are you referring to that Donald Trump gave that you consider to be an illegal order that they should not follow? And of course, they have no specifics. Because there are no specifics. Anyway, Todd Blanche has stated tonight that he's going to be looking into not only the video, but the people who put it together, because it's very troubling, and it is. Now, there is something in the House and Senate called the Speech and Debate Clause. That basically gives these people the ability to say whatever they want, and you can't sue them. They can't really be held to any account for what they say. Probably the best example, if you remember, back when Schiff was running one of the committees during Trump's first term, and he started a hearing by reading what was supposedly a letter. And about 2 minutes in, one of the Republicans said, excuse me, point of order. Is what you saying actually what Trump said? He said, no, this is what I think Trump would say. Do you remember that whole thing? And of course, anyone else, Trump could have sued from now until, kingdom come. But again, these senators and House people are covered by what they call the Speech and Debate Clause, which basically allows them to say whatever they want without fear of being sued. But Blanche is going to take a long look at this, because it's disgusting what they did. It really is. And then you got a woman named Molly Gaston. Who's Molly Gaston? Well, she was the person in the DOJ who basically let Andrew McCabe off the hook for perjury. Okay, remember they refused to charge him? She's the one that was overseeing that and refused to issue charges. And we also know she was secretly working for Lisa Monaco. Now, who's Lisa Monaco? People watch this show, you know who she is. She was the number 2 at the DOJ during the Garland Attorney Generalship, and for all intents and purposes. Just like Biden was a puppet of Obama and the globalists, Merrick Garland, he didn't know what day it was. Lisa Monaco, an evil human being, ran the Department of Justice. She was behind all the Trump lawfare. She was pushing for the January 6th convictions. And she goes way back. She goes all the way back to the whole Russiagate days, okay? She's been involved in all these things. Well, it turns out Molly Gaston, one of the top prosecutors at the DOJ, she was basically secretly working for Lisa Monaco and working for Lisa Monaco, coordinating with Jack Smith so he could try to do his damage to Trump. Nasty woman. Now, thankfully, she was one of the first ones that was fired when Trump took over. She was immediately let go. She's just a horrible person. And speaking of Jack Smith, one of his top lieutenants in his whole quest to try to take down Trump, Jim Jordan today referred his top prosecutor, Smith's top lieutenant, to the DOJ for criminal prosecution. This top lieutenant of Jack Smith has been before Jordan's Judiciary Committee 2 times, asked very specific questions, and as is his right, never answered one, refused to answer any questions, took the fifth every time, and that's fine. But sometimes there is a price to pay if you want to take the fifth, because obviously the fifth is to protect you from what? Self-incrimination. Well, if you're sitting there taking the fifth every question, that means you're worried about criminality. And if you're worried about criminality, maybe the government should be too. So he's been referred to the DOJ. We'll see what happens with all of that. Okay? And then you've got this Texas judge. Now, I've got to believe this is going to get overturned. This is just some Texas judge who ordered. Now, Texas had the Governor Abbott had put a order together to have the 10 Commandments in every classroom in Texas schools. Okay, and that happened. Well, today a Texas judge ordered that those 10 Commandments be removed before the Christmas break. Okay. Now, just for a little context, the Muslims have been in court in Texas and have won cases so they could put Islamic prayer rooms in schools. Can't have the 10 Commandments in the schools, but you can have Islamic prayer rooms in the schools. Can't make this stuff. And this, just again, if you've been with me all week, that's why you need to watch every night. We first, and of course, I've been talking about the Islamification of America for 23 years I've been on TV. But, we hit it real hard on Monday from the standpoint that Texas, which everybody believes is this, ruby red MAGA state, which for the most part it is, but it's also been infested with radical Muslims. And before the end of the year, in a few weeks, there's going to be more mosques in Texas than any other state in the country. And they have thoroughly embraced Islam in Texas. And it's just unbelievable. We also learned today that, and we talked about this, I told you this weeks ago, that we could be fairly close to invading, with a military force invading Venezuela. And it would be similar to what happened in the late 80s when we went into Panama with special forces and took out Noriega, Manuel Noriega, who was the president of Panama, but he's also a major narco trafficker, just like Maduro is. Venezuela is a narco state, sad to say. And I told you weeks ago that they didn't put that strike force and all those major military assets off the coast of Venezuela for nothing. And it seems now like they're getting closer to some sort of a, operation, probably special ops like they did in Panama back in the late 80s. And there's also some talk about the military going into Mexico to take out these cartels. Now, Sheinbaum, the president of Mexico, she is livid and animate that the United States has no right and it may be a declaration of war if they invade Mexico with our military for the purpose of taking out the drug cartels. They're not invading Mexico to take Mexico over for the United States. They're going in specifically to get rid of these cartels. Now, just for the record, it is pretty much common knowledge that Sheinbaum, the only reason she's present today is because of the cartels. She's basically a cartel asset who's heading up the country of Mexico. So we'll keep our eyes on both of those situations. Hey, I'm hearing today, I thought this was clever, but I never thought that they were serious. But I'm hearing today that what I shared with you, I think late last week maybe, that SNAP is such a corrupt and just totally out of control situation through the Department of Agriculture. They literally are very close to making everybody reapply for food stamp assistance. Okay? Now, again, I told you, when I first told you this, it might have been Monday, I think it was Monday when I first told you this. I told you then that, logistically, that was going to be a nightmare. I just never thought it would happen. But I'm hearing today that they are very serious about shutting the current SNAP program down, reopening it, but anybody who wants food stamps is going to have to reapply. Okay. Let me give you a little prediction, okay? And I certainly don't need any prophetic utterances or any ability to see in the future to say this. If they shut the program down and force all these people to reapply, the media and the Democrats are going to lose their mind. They don't want accountability for anything. How much have we had to endure to understand any time that we're talking about accountability, whether it's immigration or for food stamps or for any of these government programs, health care? They have basically used all of these government agencies and government operations, Medicare, Medicaid, to basically steal billions of dollars or allow people to steal billions of dollars and to not oppose it, for the support that they would get. I pray to God that Brooke Rollins, who's running the department, I pray to God that she's going to literally shut down the food stamp program, reopen it with a clean slate. If you want food stamps, you're going to have to reapply. And I promise you those applications are going to be scrutinized. And just, if you're busy tomorrow or the next day, and all of a sudden you hear noises that sound like we're being invaded by aliens, that means they actually did this. And that's the media and the Democrats losing their very minds. They will go insane over this. Good. Sorry. Dick Cheney's funeral tomorrow at the National Cathedral. Trump will not be attending. Don't blame him. Why would he? Although Biden's going to be there. Listen, I'm old enough to remember from 2000 to 2008, when Dick Cheney was vice president of the United States, and they called him Darth Vader. They accused him of running the country. And yes, He was a warmonger's warmonger. His whole family is. Because they made hundreds of millions of dollars from wars. Being on the boards of, national defense operations like Grumman and, Halliburton and companies like that who are part of the Defense Department, right? But I remember the press hated Cheney. And they only started liking him late last year when he went on TV to basically endorse Cammy for president and claim that Trump would be a disaster for the country and he was going to vote for Cammy Harris, okay? All of a sudden they loved him. Of course, they loved Lizzie. But, unbelievable. All right, let me talk to you about Ukraine because we've got some very interesting things that have been unfolding. It's been kind of quiet, okay? Oh, let me tell you about this one first. I told you this was going to happen. A couple of nights ago, a rail line in Poland, okay, which is a neighbor to Ukraine and a NATO country, okay, a rail line in Poland was blown up, okay? Now, of course, all the blame went where? Putin did this. Putin did this. Remember when the Nord Stream pipeline was blown up? Oh, Putin did that, which was just insanity because it was Putin's pipeline to get natural gas into Europe, which is how they make their money. The Russian economy is 90% energy, oil and gas. There's no way Putin blowing up the Nord Stream. And of course, now that things are settled, we know that he didn't. And it's been blamed on some Ukrainians, but this was such a sophisticated operation to actually do it. While Ukrainians may have physically done it, our CIA basically gave them all the technical expertise how to do it. Now, so who blew up this rail line in Poland, a NATO country, by the way? I can almost guarantee it was Ukrainians. Again, doing it as a false flag, which I told you to be watching for these, that they could then blame on Russia. And now it's not just Ukraine, but now you've got a NATO country, Poland, that has some, things to grind out with Mr. Putin, right? And again, it was all in an effort to keep the war going. That's what it was all about, okay? So just once you understand that, it all makes sense, okay? Now, Steve Wyckoff, Trump's personal deal maker, he's in Turkey tonight, meeting with Turkish President Erdogan, who, of course, was just at the White House. Guess who else is in Turkey? Zelensky. Yep. And let me tell you why Zelensky's there. Because while things have been kind of quiet on the Ukrainian peace talk front, there's been a lot going on under the surface. Basically, Trump's people have been hammering out a peace deal with Russia to end the war. Okay? Now, I didn't say hammering out a peace deal with Russia and Ukraine. Hammering out a peace deal with Russia. And of course, it's going to involve them, Ukraine having to cede territory to Russia, which they've had since 2014 anyway. Okay? But the bottom line is, I've told you this a million times, Zelensky is never going to accept any kind of peace deal. And Trump knows this, and the way and what he's doing now, because again, his people have been under the radar, working a 28-point peace plan out with Russia. And I tell you what he's going to do. He's going to lay it on the desk in front of Zelensky, said, here's the deal, sign it. Here, Russia's agreed to this, sign it. And they've got Zelensky in Turkey, and Erdogan's going to be putting pressure on him to sign it. I will be shocked to the core if Zelensky doesn't tear it up and walk out. He's a puppet. Don't forget, he is a puppet. He's not allowed to make decisions. Okay? And on another front in Ukraine, the whole corruption scandal is blowing up big time. And again, all these people that the Anti-Corruption Bureau has been looking into are all totally connected, joined at the hip with Zelensky. Okay? All of their businesses were made possible by Zelensky, which means God knows what they were kicking back to him, right? And the Ukrainian people are absolutely disgusted with the whole thing. It's bad enough Zelensky's killed 1 million of their people with no end in sight. And everybody knows Ukraine's one of the most corrupt places in the world anyway. But now it's being, rubbed in their noses. The $10 million toilet by the one guy, Timur Mindich. Remember him? Oh, by the way, all of these guys that the Anti-Corruption Bureau have been, looking at hard and going after, raiding their homes, raiding their offices, every one of them's left the country, okay? And like I told you, that Timur Mindich, the guy with the $10 million solid gold toilet, he happened to have a very good sense of timing because he left 2 hours before the Anti-Corruption Bureau raided his homes and offices. Just 2. Man, what a lucky guy he was, right? Yeah, okay. Oh, and by the way, I took some time today, scoured the media transcripts ever since last Thursday when I originally started telling you about Timur Mindich and then the other Russian buddies of Zelensky who've siphoned off hundreds of millions in the process. Other than a very few comments in the conservative media ecosystem, the rest of the media, the corporate media, the main networks, NBC, ABC, CNN, not a word about the overt and in-your-face corruption of Ukraine. Not a word. Also, check this too, just because I wanted to know, the European press, virtually nothing. All this reporting is coming out of places like Hungary and Poland and places like that. But the UK, Italy, France, Germany, the main European countries, not a word. Because they want the war to keep going, just like these, war pigs in the U.S. want to keep going. So they certainly don't want to be talking about all this corruption, because we've known about that anyway, haven't we? Oh, and Viktor Orban, who is, I guess, the Trump of Europe, total nationalist, hasn't sent a dime of Hungarian money to the EU to give to Zelensky, refused to take immigrants, shut his country down. And that's why his people love him. Listen to what Viktor Orban said, okay? Because Zelensky's basically in talks with the EU, saying he needs $150 billion, to run the war and run his country for the next year, right? Viktor Orban absolutely was laughing, rolling on the floor laughing. And when he got done laughing and he stood up, you know what he said? Sending Ukraine money is like sending an alcoholic a case of vodka. That's a good one. And Victor, I'm just letting you know now, I'm going to steal that one. That's good. Sending Ukraine money is like sending an alcoholic a case of vodka. Boy, if that isn't some massive, massive truth. Massive truth. Lastly, before we leave you tonight. There is a major war going on in redistricting. You had a couple rogue federal judges in Texas that struck down their new congressional map, saying it was racist. Well, that's being appealed, of course, because they're almost on the verge of having to register the people running and everything, so it's getting kind of late. And by taking down, and if this is allowed to stand, the extra 5 seats that they were going to get in Texas, they're not going to get. This is a big deal, folks. This is about the balance of power in the House, which if the Democrats take the House next November, I've already told you the consequences of that. But here's the interesting thing. We know California, Gavin Newsom just scammed through a situation so they could redistrict California and in essence leave California with maybe 1 or 2 Republican seats out of 30, even though 40% of California voted for Republicans. Okay, his redistricting map is being challenged, and here's what I think is going to happen. Short of an appellate victory in Texas, you're going to get the Texas map shot down, and the Republicans are already suing Gavin Newsom in California for the same thing, saying what he's doing is racist. But you're going to get some federal judge in California that's going, no, I don't think it's racist. It's good. Yeah. Gavin can do that. Watch. In other words, they're going to knock down the new Texas map, and then with the same argument in California, a California district judge is going to say, no, it stands. And again, folks, you do not understand this. It sounds like just a bunch of inside baseball, but this is critical. And I've told you, Republicans probably get somewhere in 30% of the vote in states like Connecticut and Delaware and all those states through there, right? Yet there's not one Republican in the House in those states because they were all redistricted out years ago. The Democrats have been doing this for years. The reason they really don't have many places to redistrict because they've redistricted it down to a point where they've squeezed like every drop of juice out of those lemons they could. So we'll keep an eye on those 2 situations in Texas and California. Because again, the Democrats sued in Texas and found a judge that agreed with them. The Republicans have sued Gavin for the same thing in California. And if I had to bet money tonight, I would say that they will get just the opposite, even though it's technically the same situation. These judges. Let me just get this off my chest before we close out. And I think I mentioned this the other night. You kind of grew up, at least when I did. Again, I'm 60, almost 68. So just give you a perspective of, born in 58, grew up in the 60s, 70s. We were always taught to respect, law enforcement, doctors, dentists. These are people who went to school for a long time to be able to, take care of your health and your teeth and all. We were just taught to be respectful. Law enforcement, they were the good guys, right? Judges, my goodness. These were the ultimate good guys. They sat on those big benches and had those, black robes on, and these were like God's men, right? In the book of Judges, right? Boy, all of that has just gone out the window, especially the judges. Unbelievable. All right, before we get out of here tonight, if you never made a decision for Jesus, want to make sure you have that chance tonight before we leave you. It's a choice only you can make. Nobody can do it for you. But if you're sitting there tonight and you want to make that commitment to Christ, why don't you pray with me now? Dear Lord, I come to you this night, asking you to forgive me of all my sins. Lord, tonight I believe in my heart and confess with my mouth that Jesus is my Lord, my Savior, my Redeemer. And tonight, I surrender my life to you now and forevermore. My life belongs to you. In Jesus' name I pray, amen. My friend, if you made that commitment tonight, the words didn't save you. They were just a verbal guide for what you were doing in your heart by faith. Have a book I'll send you. Won't cost you anything. Drop me an email, bkellerliveprayer.com. I'll get it out to you. If you need prayer for anything, don't hesitate to email me, bkellerliveprayer.com, okay? All right, love and care about you so much. Have a good rest of your Wednesday evening. Get a good night's sleep tonight. Have a wonderful day tomorrow, Lord willing. Back here for our Thursday edition of Live Prayer, 11 o'clock Eastern. God bless you.
What problems are you dealing with in your life right now?
Do you feel like giving up? Times are hard and you're not strong. Well, I know the answer for you, and it will